All right, everybody, welcome in. It's the second time that I've been able to team up with Guy Haberman. And last time we did the ceremonial coin toss to begin the show. So here's the ceremonial coin toss. We will use this to determine who opens the show, even though I've technically opened it. So let's go.
You should lead the show because of how I sound, but nonetheless, call it in the air, David.
Tails never fails.
Tails again.
That may or may not have been rigged. So I'll
not rigged.
No, you swear
it would have been rigged. Had it been heads, I was still going to say it was tails, but that was tails.
Hey, your voice is coming along. I tuned into one of your shows 2 days ago, and I was like, this still sounds rough. And I mean, it doesn't sound great right now, but it's coming along.
Yeah,
and it's all going to be worth it. It's how long do you think? 2-3 weeks, and then
tomorrow will be 2 weeks since vocal cord surgery.
Gotcha. So
and I've been doing stuff like I look at it like a restaurant that only a few people go to. Like it's there. Like for the last few weeks with this voice, like I'm here. If anyone wants to click and listen, great. If not, I understand. But should be hopefully next week. I don't know if it sounds this way. I can tell that it's better today than it was yesterday. But
you're like Eric Armstead. You're in the playoffs and you're playing through a torn meniscus.
Somebody sent me a DM yesterday. They're like, "Hey man, appreciate the shows, but it feels like I'm watching an old athlete limp around the field." I was like, "Yeah."
At least he's still in there. At least he's still putting in the reps. So.
Jerry Rice on the Seahawks.
Yeah, he did play for the Seahawks. Now, that's something to talk about. Jerry Rice's numbers post like age 32 are better than all but like 5 receivers of all time, which is absolutely insane. And I get it. I don't think he did all too much with the Seahawks, but Jerry Rice with the Raiders, I want to open up his Pro Football Reference page right now. We can open up this show talking about Jerry. I don't think people really have, because we didn't have the modern stats back when Jerry was playing. And now, like retroactively, we can look at the Pro Football Reference pages, but he's already been retired. It is certifiably insane. So you could see the ages right here. Look at just go post 30, age 31, 1,500 receiving yards, age 32, 1,500 again, age 33, 1,848. He's got 1,000-yard seasons at age 36, age 39, age 40. At 41 with Oakland, he's got 869 receiving yards. And at age 42 with Oakland and Seattle, I mean, it's not like he didn't do nothing with Seattle. With Seattle, he had 25 catches for 362, 14.5 per reception. So we joke about it. Oh yeah, Jerry Rice was Seattle. Guy was trash. He's better than most receivers in the league.
Well, all right. So look at this. I've got highlighted his age 41 season.
Yeah.
Now 63 catches on 124 targets is not great, but I think Debo had 63 catches this year. Now, different situations. I'm not saying it's the same, but I think Debo had like 63 catches. It might have been exactly 63 this year or somewhere in that range. And that's what, I mean, he had 92. I think you just said that. He got 9 touchdowns at age 39. Holy smokes, man.
Yeah. Right. Like when I first looked at this and I just like cut off his prime years, right? His 20s up to like age 30. Just if I looked at 31 and beyond, it's a Hall of Fame career. It's kind of like the inverse of Barry Bonds, right? Like everybody talks about the steroids and all this and all that, but you can just cut off everything before 2000 and still a Hall of Fame career.
Right.
Jerry Rice, did similar. You have the first half is obviously his prime, so you see even better production, but it continues past that. So even if you took away all the 49ers Super Bowl years, you would still have a Hall of Fame player. I mean, 1,000-yard seasons on repeat. And, 98, no, it was 97. See 97, you see the 2 games. That was the year where he tore his ACL in week 1 against Tampa Bay. And then he came back from a torn ACL that year and scored a touchdown on Monday Night Football against the Denver Broncos. Right. Unfortunately, he cracked his patella, and I'm guessing it was related. I guess he came back. But still, the mere fact that he was able to come back in the regular season from a torn ACL and score a touchdown, and then, despite the double injury, comes back next year and puts up 1,200 yards.
At age 35, not at age 28.
Yeah. So I think Jerry Rice, there's all these arguments about who's the greatest football player of all time, and it centers on the quarterback position. And there's a lot of Joe Montana and Tom Brady. I'm sorry. I think the greatest football player of all time I think it's indisputable. I think it's Jerry Rice. I don't think anybody did it with this kind of longevity. Just look at the numbers. He has the most NFL records of any player in history. So I think that goes and says it.
Have you ever had goat juice? His energy drink.
Goat fuel, right?
Goat fuel. Okay.
They got Trey Lance on board for that. Remember they did that video. Well, this was back when Lance was with the 49ers. That was a big thing when Lance was coming into the league. Jerry and Steve Young both showed up at the facility and did a goat fuel shoot with Trey Lance. Now I know that Brock Purdy is doing videos as well, but they're not for goat fuel. They're for corn fuel.
Yeah, we got Brock here. Let's see. I got this new Brock ad I saw today. Brock is with these are your people. These are your people, Lombardi.
Hey, I met you in Fresno, so these are aren't you from Davis?
Yeah.
So these are your people too. Let's go. Let's see it.
Just any field. It's a field ready to challenge you to beat your best yet using the #1 corn seed on the market. I've had the chance to harvest some Pioneer corn on my in-laws farm firsthand last fall, and I'm excited about our brands teaming up. Let's go dominate the field this year. And remember, what's next happens here.
So I'm a Pioneer high school. I just saw the name Pioneer Seeds, Mount Whitney Pioneers. So they are my people. That was awesome, right? I mean,
you know what I love about this ad, David, is like, if I said to you, David, I want you to endorse goat fuel, you'd be like, all right, well, I have to, I'm not going to endorse anything I don't use, so I got to try the product. And then you would take a sip. You'd be like, all right, I like it. We try the product. When the product is seed corn and you need to sample it, it takes like 8 months for you to sample the product.
So you really have to rely on that word of mouth. And if Brock Purdy's telling you, then there you go.
There you go. That's Pioneer seed corn.
And these are like industrial corn farms that I'm sure that they're selling to,
right.
Today I'm going to fly across country a little bit later and I'll look down and you're flying for 2 hours and it's cornfields, right? In the Midwest. So you got to have a lot of that stuff and it better be effective because if you buy the wrong product, then it's a costly mistake. So Purdy, I mean, we saw the John Deere commercial they're filming in San Francisco.
Oh, is that going to come out at any point now? Commercial?
His next one's going to be John Deere.
John Deere. Okay.
He's going to be driving a tractor through the city. I think it's going to go viral. How can it not?
Yeah, I remember seeing the photos of that. Where was that? Where were they shooting that? Could you tell?
I only saw like the small photo, like scrolling through. I didn't expand it. It looked like a quintessential San Francisco street.
But it wasn't like in front of the painted ladies, right? I don't think it didn't look like.
No, let me find it. I'm gonna go look.
Yeah, I made a comment a while ago. Somebody told me his Toyota ad has actually became a national ad, not just a local like California Toyota dealers ad, but a national Toyota ad. I don't know if that's true or not because I don't know that I've seen the national ad, but
well. I think it's the most relatable story for so many people in sports, and at least in American sports. It was during the football season, and that makes him immensely marketable. It's one of those things where every single dad now that has a son playing football is going to be trying to figure out, okay, how can I make him one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL? Because now there's not that barrier in people's heads of he's not 6'6" or 6'5" and run a 4.3, all this stuff. Like every dad is going to be trying to figure out how to have their kid take the Brock Purdy path, for better or for worse. Not sure that's a great thing in America with some of the helicopter parenting going on because it happened naturally for Brock. You meet his parents, they're awesome. And, but obviously in America, whenever you see that kind of success, everybody's going to try to emulate it. And sometimes they're probably not going to emulate it in the most productive ways possible.
Well, it actually leads us to a good draft. I want to get your opinion on something I don't think you and I have talked about, but I've talked about a lot, which is, Brock was picked 262, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
He was like I don't remember if he was the Gatorade player of the year in the state of Arizona, but he was, in that type of level prospect. He goes to Iowa State. People are like, he didn't go to Ohio State. Yeah, we didn't go to UC Davis either. He went to Iowa State, was a great Big 12 quarterback, right? He's not some schmuck. He got drafted 262. And the conversation for a couple of years after was like, and I don't know if it feels like it's died off a little, but will NFL teams change the way they draft quarterbacks because of the Niners' success with Brock Purdy? And I don't see how it's possible to replicate. I think he's a diamond in the rough, an exception to the rule.
I think NFL teams will work to modify and evolve in the way that they select quarterbacks just because it's so important based on what succeeds and what fails. But right now, the NFL doesn't. They're throwing darts at a wall right now. I don't think that there is, because it's really, really hard to quantify what makes the great quarterbacks great. And it's definitely not how fast they can run the 40. It's definitely not how far down the field they can throw the football. And those are all the things that are easy to quantify. So for some positions, that's an easier translation, right? You see a guy that runs a 4.2 and you say, okay, great. I want the guy that runs a 4.2 because I could use his speed somewhere. But success at the quarterback position is so much more nuanced, from timing to processing to combining everything with bodies flying at you to leadership. That those aren't things that you could just, measure in Indianapolis with a laser timer. And because of that, there are different, the cognition testing, the S2 stuff. I think maybe that's a step toward being able to quantify some of these things, but it is still, given how important the quarterback position is, and it might be the most important position in all of sports. Kyle Shanahan has said that many times. Given it's staggering to me that the evaluation process for that position is as underdeveloped as it is. It's so important, yet it's the evaluation of it is so far behind every other position. And because of that, like we're in the Wild West to where pick 262 can become an MVP finalist, and where I don't know how teams are going to evaluate quarterbacks in 5 years, because I see that evolving, because teams right now are just throwing darts up at a wall.
I would guarantee they'll be making the same mistakes in 10 years that they made 10 years ago. I don't think there's any question, because it's human. As somebody said to me, it's humans evaluating humans. That is just, it's, the whole thing about CJ Stroud and the S2 cognition test, like, oh, well, actually there was a mistake. There were the flaws that test didn't actually, no one was using that test, blah, 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 blah. Even that thing's going to, it's now, by the way, they sure were trumpeting that test last year. And then CJ, and then when CJ started playing well, all of a sudden it was like, no, there was, he was tired that day. That test wasn't legit.
Yeah. And they tried to hide behind that. And obviously, I think Purdy scored well on it, right? And the whole CJ thing. But now there's going to be exceptions to every rule. So it could be an effective test, but the CJ Stroud situation could have been an outlier. But the problem is, people don't trust the evaluation process yet. It's still in its infancy. And usually when you're trying to build momentum up, you've got to deliver good results early on. It's hard to have something like that happen, and big high profile miss like that and build the momentum that you want. I put the Purdy farm. We might have some detectives here. I got a screenshot of the video.
Oh, that feels like the sunset.
Yeah. I think they couldn't get a tractor into the inner city, because those are shorter buildings, right? So that's definitely not Pack Heights, inner city stuff. That's more outside of Divisadero. I see a hill in the background. Now, we might have some detectives. We could look at the comment section.
Well, this big grassy knoll here is a hint. I don't know what it is, but that's definitely got to be a hint, right?
Yes. Somebody knows. And Brock is wearing flannel somewhere in there. I was watching. It's on YouTube. You guys type in Brock Purdy, John Deere, San Francisco. You could see the tractor on the left.
Yeah, that's a good ad. I like this. This has Buster Posey vibes to me.
Yeah, well, so does the Toyota stuff, right?
The Toyota stuff. But Buster's Toyota commercials were like kind of clever. I don't know if they had enough time to come up with something clever. Brock's commercial wasn't clever. It was just a commercial.
That's a good comparison. Brock Purdy, Buster Posey.
Yeah.
I mean, if the Purdy arc goes anything like Posey's, 49ers fans will be over the moon. 3 World Series.
Posey was a guy too that now Posey had won the Golden Spikes Award, right? The college triple crown. He had played his last year at Florida State. They did a thing where he played all 9 positions in one game.
I remember that.
He was a top pick, right? So he's in those ways, he's not like Brock. What was unique about Buster was because he played catcher, right? His value was inflated, right? And even though he was a great athlete, like good enough to play all 9 positions in college, if he was not, this sounds so stupid to say, but he was not like from an athletic perspective, right? He wasn't Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Andrew Luck, right? He wasn't that type of guy. Like he wasn't fast. He hit for power, but not in the way that like power hitters hit for power, right? He hit for power to the opposite field. He was not just like he's going to pull bombs. He was a really technical hitter. That was part of what made Buster so good, is that he could take a strikeout pitch and make it a single. I think that was his, like, as a hitter, his superpower was he could take a pitch that would jam you and flip it into center. It would break everybody else's bat, but it was a single for Buster.
Yeah.
So, it's a weird comp because he was a blue chip prospect even as a pro, but I don't know. He wasn't like Mike Trout, like that type of athlete, right? And then part of his value was just like premium position and just a solid cornerstone of your franchise.
Well, so a lot of what you're saying, I think, is a parallel to Purdy because he was at that premium position where the cerebral aspect of playing it is so valuable, right? So at catcher, you have to manage the pitching staff. You have to call the game. You're doing stuff that the casual fan is not going to appreciate.
Yeah.
And the way that you said that Buster Posey succeeded at the plate, I think that's something that the casual fan is more likely to appreciate. Mike Trout hitting a 450-foot bomb than Buster Posey flipping a single or into center field or hitting a gapper on a pitch that would jam anybody else. So in much the same way, a lot of what Brock Purdy is doing for the 49ers, commanding the proceedings with his mind, the line of scrimmage, throwing with anticipation, some of those layered throws over linebackers in front of safeties over the middle. I mean, we've seen the highest yards per attempt from Brock Purdy on intermediate passes in documented NFL history. That kind of stuff is really, really impressive. I think that people who know the game well, but it's not your Josh Allen type 50-yard bomb, that I think really sells on Twitter. So they might have been less touted coming. Purdy was, and also their names both start with a P and a Y, Posey and Purdy, but they might have been.
And their
less,
first names start with B.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
If you go with
all these parallels. But so anyway, Purdy was less touted coming out of college, but I think that goes back to what we were talking about. I think that goes back to it is much harder to evaluate the QB position in football than it is maybe any other position in American sports as far as evaluating who might port his game from college to the pros. Baseball, I think, is maybe one of the easier ones. It's hard anywhere, right? But in baseball, you've got the numbers, you have essentially like a uniform set of variables that you could look at from college moving to the pros, whereas quarterback going from college to the pros is almost a different sport, some would tell you.
Yeah.
So maybe Purdy should have been, and he definitely should have been more highly touted. It was just a matter of mistaken evaluation.
Yeah. But by the way, we had the Diggs trade yesterday.
Yeah.
For a 2025 second.
Yeah, next year's pick. And they had to give up picks going that way.
And it cost them more money this year. So, and by the way, if he has Jerry Rice's next 3 years at the age, then great, but he's not trending in the right direction. But after that trade yesterday, the Houston Texans are getting anointed as, kind of the chief. I think you might have said yesterday, like maybe they're the chief killer for the Niners, right? Like take care of the Chiefs for the Niners.
That was Mike's idea. We didn't give
idea.
Mike from Visalia some credit. Yeah, he's like, are the Texans the chief killers? I'm like, that's a great title.
That's a great title.
Yeah. Oh, there he is. That's Mike.
Count me as a little skeptical. Okay, put me down as skeptical on the Texans winning the AFC next year. The AFC's been filled with the next Mahomes killer for a while now. It was Josh Allen. It was Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow did it. Justin Herbert. I think the Chargers are going to be better this year. I think the Chiefs are going to be good again. And anytime a rookie quarterback has as good a year as CJ Stroud does, my general reaction, this is not Stroud specific, David, is just, let's see that again.
Yeah.
So I think everyone's kind of, I'm not saying setting them up for the fall, but my question for you is, how convinced are you that Houston could become the team to beat this year in the AFC?
I don't think that they're the team to beat until they actually win it. Like, I think that the Chiefs have the rightful spot at the throne, and you don't give that up until you actually lose it on the field. So the team to beat is the Chiefs, and the Texans should be underdogs if they meet in the postseason, in my opinion, because Kansas City has proven that even with an inferior roster, it can beat teams when it matters. And that includes the 49ers. They found a way to get it done. I thought the 49ers were clearly the better team in that Super Bowl, but you have to give credit to Kansas City for finding a way to get it done when push came to shove. So the team to beat is Kansas City. I think that Houston is doing everything they can to capitalize on CJ Stroud's rookie contract window.
Yeah.
You see a lot of deals for 2 years there. The Diggs deal, to me, it arguably will be a good, and this is why a trade would happen. It could be good for both teams. And that's every single trade in the history of football. That's been the goal of both teams. They both think that they have an ability to come out on top, but Buffalo saw their relationship with Stefan Diggs had become so toxic that he was not going to be somebody who was an optimal investment for them moving forward. So they're willing to eat some of that dead money hit and save a lot of money in the future as well, too, because you get out of the contract in 2024, which is fully guaranteed, and then you get out from 25, 26, and 27. But conversely, this could be a huge win for the Texans, because look at the price that they get Stefan Diggs at for 4 seasons of team control. I mean, the cap numbers are between 18 and 19 million in every single season. And if, yes, he's 31, 32, 33, and 34 throughout the contract. But as we just saw with the Jerry Rice numbers, it's not impossible for a receiver to still be productive. I'm not saying he's Jerry Rice, but these are still potentially productive seasons for a really good receiver. And if all that he needed was a change of scenery, if the leadership in Buffalo, which included an offensive coordinator change last year, and obviously Josh Allen, he's the fixture there. He's the most powerful player on that team. If all he needed was to get away from that to fall more in line with the organization, then Houston can be getting a really good receiver at a really good rate, because we're talking about Brandon Aiyuk right now, and we're saying, is he going to get 25 million or is he going to get 27 million? Well, they just got Stefan Diggs for 18 to 19 million a year and a 2025 second round pick. So I think both sides stand to benefit in this equation, but we'll see who ends up winning.
It's also evidence that Aiyuk needs to become a bigger pain in the ass if he wants if he wants his way. I got a text yesterday from somebody who knows the Bills intimately, and they said he was supposed to have been traded prior to his salary becoming guaranteed March 17th.
Didn't Antonio Brown come out? I know Antonio Brown is wild on Twitter, but didn't he say that there was interest in the Texans trading for Stefan Diggs like early in March, and he's taking a victory lap now? Antonio Brown saying, "See, guys, this is why you should follow me. I'm unseating Schefter." But he's also been wrong on like 10 things. So that's the problem. But anyway, assuming that he actually had heard legitimate information, which is possible, since then it sounds like maybe something was in the works sooner, but it didn't happen. But the salary did guarantee, but Houston is still on the hook for that now. I don't know if that changed things for Buffalo. They're on the hook for 18.5 guaranteed this year. What the dead money is for Buffalo is money they had already paid out through signing bonus and option bonus. So there's about 31 million of that for Buffalo.
Oh yeah, why is this not showing me? This is only showing me Houston now. Okay.
Yeah, this is only showing you what Houston inherited. But if you go to Buffalo's page, like the Bills over the cap page, you'll see the dead money that they owe Stefan Diggs this year. There you go.
All right.
I'm selling you some shorts.
Yeah, I like Fiore. Those are comfortable.
Go down, and then you'll see the dead money probably at the very bottom. There you go. So 31 million in dead money. That's the amount of signing and option bonus money that had already been paid. So it's already in Diggs' bank account. but it hadn't hit the cap yet because for salary cap purposes, it's prorated. But if you trade a guy, you cut a guy, it accelerates to hit the cap sooner. And there's no post June 1st trade designation. You actually would have to trade the guy after June 1st. Like Armstead, with Armstead, they cut him and all that dead money was going to hit, but they said, okay, we're going to post June 1st designate you for the cut, which meant that a big portion of that money is not going to hit until next year.
That means that for the conversation about saving money on Debo in 2025, right, where his dead cap number is like $6 million after June 1, that means either a cut pre-June 1 with a post-June 1 designation or actually a trade post-June 1.
Yeah, but that's the teams don't like doing that because teams like trading for guys or trading guys away before the draft so they get the picks for that draft, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, you know, people think I don't think people are framing this completely right. They're like, oh my God, the dead money. Well, yeah, the dead money to me, that's a sunk cost. That's something you've already paid, something that's going to hit your cap no matter what. When you trade away a guy like Armstead, or you cut Armstead, but so when you part ways with a guy like Armstead, when you trade away a guy like Diggs, yeah, you're incurring the dead money, but you already are going to incur that. What you're doing is trading away the contract in the future. So the Bills saved something like $19 million this year, plus about $60 million total over the next 3. It's like $80 million that they freed up from their books because that's now the Texans' responsibility. Is it inefficient? Yes, you can argue it's inefficient because this year Diggs accounts for $31 million on their cap, and he's not even on their team. But that was the price they were willing to pay. They're willing to swallow that because they said we've already paid it anyway because we think we're better off without him.
Yeah.
So it's an indictment of the toxicity of that relationship.
It's when it's also like when you go through, right, and you think about the best receivers in the league, Brandon is the furthest from a diva. The furthest. Think about DK. I always reference A.J. Brown last year early. The Eagles are running the ball, and he throws a fit on the sideline because they're not throwing it to him. So they start throwing in the ball, and the Vikings almost come back and beat him.
Anybody says Aiyuk is a diva, put on the tape of the McCaffrey run in week 1 against Pittsburgh. He literally blocked 2 guys, decleated one of them, DeMonte Casey, the DB for the Steelers. But he blocked 2 guys, including an edge rusher, within, I think I timed it. I got on my stopwatch. It was like 4 or 5 seconds apart, 15 yards apart. So he executes his chip, and then he's just looking, who else am I going to go destroy? I mean, like a heat-seeking missile, he takes off and he finds Casey and he flattens him, and Christian McCaffrey scores. There are very few receivers in the NFL. He might be the only true top bona fide X receiver who will execute that chip on the defensive end. But I don't think there's anybody for sure that will do that plus go and decleat a guy 15 yards downfield. That's all you have to say. That's not a diva type of play. I mean, it is what it is. Like people are upset because he put a few emojis up on Instagram, but
he's showing up to the facility.
He's showing up. We talked about this. He's showing up to the facility. He's literally saying in interviews that he wants his representation to get stuff done with the 49ers. What'd you say? Worst negotiator ever?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But yeah, it's not, being a good teammate's not a great tactic, right? Like in some ways. Now on the Niners, it is what they value. And ultimately those guys get paid, right? Like Nick Bosa got paid.
And when people take social media so seriously, these guys are allowed to have some fun with people. Like these guys are sitting at home, like the adrenaline is super high during the season, and packed stadiums, millions of people watching. It gets a little quiet in the off season. So I could see the joy that you might get, the little bit of a rush that you might get out of tweeting a couple things and seeing your phone blow up. Like it's not going to change anything. That's what people need to realize. Like he's under contractual control, and he's literally said that he wants his agents to get something done with the 49ers. Him tweeting something does not change that dynamic whatsoever.
Yeah. He also watched Debo's situation up close.
Yeah. And that ended up stressing Debo out more than anything. Debo admits that nowadays. Like, he said he came in not in shape because he was so focused on the theatrics of the trade request, which happened, I believe it was April 10th. It was around there. So right around this time of the year, 2 years ago, is when the Debo trade request came in. And it's very clear. It was clear at the time, but I think it's even clearer in retrospect. He saw the draft coming up about 2 or 3 weeks from that point, or Tory Dandy, his agent, saw the draft coming up, and he said, well, let's put the 49ers feet to the fire. And then you saw them put the Titans feet to the fire, and the Titans traded AJ Brown. So the strategy, and that was the same agent. So the strategy worked with the Titans, who blinked. And they're like, okay, well, fine, we'll trade him. We don't want to deal with this. And it worked for AJ Brown and Tory Dandy because he got 4 years, $100 million. It didn't work with the 49ers. They said, no, we're not going to play this game. We have the power here. The Titans have gotten eviscerated for that decision, probably rightfully so.
The GM
and the coach is not there either anymore. And the 49ers said, no, we have control here. We're not going to give it up just because somebody requested a trade. And they got it done with Debo Samuel down the road. So like you said, Aiyuk saw that firsthand.
Let's talk about a couple positions. Tight end and safety. Brock Wright. Lions matched his restricted free agent offer yesterday. So the 49ers don't have any tight ends.
Yeah. We'll have George Kittle, but beyond that, they have like a combined 0 catches in the NFL.
Okay.
Because they have Braden Willis, Cam Latu, and Jake Tongas. Even the guy that they let walk to Atlanta had only 11 catches in 4 years. That was Charlie Werner. That was part of the reason why the 49ers let Charlie Werner walk. They had a budget for him. Atlanta exceeded it. Then the 49ers turned around and offered the same contract as they offered to Werner, or as the Falcons offered to Werner, 3 years, $12 million to Brock Wright. And Brock Wright would have been an upgrade receiving wise. Brock Wright has, I think, 44 catches over 3 seasons. He's a good yak guy too. Would have been a nice pickup for the 49ers. I think they thought that they offered high enough because it didn't seem like Detroit valued him that high. They offered him $2.985 million for a year. It's the lowest RFA tender that you can offer. So the 49ers thought, okay, well, if we offer him $12 million, some long-term security, there's no way that Detroit matches this. But Detroit thought about it for all 5 days, and they said, okay, maybe he is better than that original round tender. So the RFA process worked the way it's supposed to work. Brock Wright was undervalued, and the 49ers helped negotiate a new contract for him. Worst case scenario for the 49ers would be that they caused Detroit to spend some extra money, which they did. But I do wonder if the 49ers, looking back on it, wish they would have offered even more, because I think they really want that tight end too who could catch the ball.
Yeah. They've been looking for it since, what's his name? Not Justin Reed.
Jordan Reed.
Jordan Reed for like 6 games. Caught some balls.
He was really good for them in 2020.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, what?
Well, would they target a more athletic tight end in the draft? Like the tight ends they've drafted are more developmental, right? Cam Latu's a developmental, even though they drafted him at the end of the 3rd round. Like, would they draft a productive college tight end in this draft? I wonder.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because George Kittle wasn't productive in college, but it was more not because of him. It was because of where he
Iowa.
Yeah, exactly. So, and people figured it out after George Kittle. Those other Iowa tight ends started going in the 1st round.
That's right.
Yeah. So you can't get that kind of value anymore. George Kittle's an alien, right? I think he called Brandon Aiyuk an alien through his emojis last week. But if there's, Brack, I get it. Brandon Ayuk's an alien too, but they got a lot of aliens on the team as far as just their athletic ability. But Kittle is 250 and he runs a 4.5, I think even 4.48. It was the time. You don't see that at the position. You see these guys running 4.6s at best, more like 4.7, and just a completely different player at that speed, right? He could play that wideout position. He could force actual defensive backs to cover him, changes everything about how defenses play you. So you have to get an alien to do what Kittle does, but I don't think you need an alien to be a tight end too. But you do need somebody that has an above average skill set, because Charlie Werner, they were hoping that he would develop into a receiver. They thought, okay, this guy's really raw. Georgia didn't use him as a receiver. Maybe we can develop him that way. And then they got 11 catches in 4 years, including a huge drop that I remember in Atlanta in 2021. I think they probably won that game on the post if Werner catches that ball. So anyway, I thought that was representative of the struggles at tight end too, receiving wise. And it's hard. It's hard to find somebody that if you're not drafting them really high, that's going to be able to give you the adaptability that the 49ers demand there.
Yeah. And you're asking a lot of that player to get 11 targets a year, but one of them's going to be a game-winning play. You better be ready for it. I mean, that's the ideal. That's being a pro, but you're asking a lot, right? If you never throw a guy a ball, which
he was a second-year guy at the time too. So
they don't throw. It's just if you're not going to be. I mean, how many targets did Jauan Jennings have last year? 25.
Which
guess.
That's what makes
low.
him so impressive, right? Is that he's able to convert all of those opportunities. I'm looking right now.
33 targets. 33 targets. He felt like he could have been the Super Bowl MVP, David. He had 33 targets last year.
See the podcast with him and Dobbs?
I saw you put a clip out of it. I haven't watched it. Was it good? What'd they talk about?
They talked about the Hail Mary in 2016. I guess Dobbs has the ball. So Jennings just in the excitement of the moment, just hurled the ball randomly into a certain direction. And it's a good thing that it was a road game, because if it were at Tennessee, then some fan would have picked it up and that fan would have the ball, right? But at Georgia, nobody wanted anything to do with that ball because they were all so stunned that they had lost in the Hail Mary. So Dobbs was able to retrieve the ball, and it's at his parents' house now after that Hail Mary.
What podcast was it?
Josh Dobbs's podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Jennings was on there, and they were talking about that. Do you know that Jennings threw a touchdown pass to Dobbs at Tennessee?
I did know that, only because after the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I think maybe you said it during the Super Bowl.
I did. Yeah. And then when I put out the tape of it later, it's the same play. It's not a carbon copy, because the Super Bowl play went to a running back and McCaffrey, but it's very damn similar. And it was the inspiration for the 49ers to put it into their playbook for the Super Bowl.
Was it also almost a disaster, or did it work more smoothly?
It was cleaner because college defenses are slower. So, I mean, they were able to throw it to the quarterback, and the quarterback was able to run all the way for the touchdown down the sideline. So there was more margin for error. Burford was able to create a little bit of space on the one that the 49ers ran that might have saved an interception. So go back and watch it. I think Burford just kind of forms a perimeter that was very, very necessary for that play to work.
And Jennings almost gets crushed, or he gets crushed.
He does get crushed. He gets destroyed. That, to me, and people don't realize, Guy, that football fields are 53 1/3 yards wide. So that is a long throw. He didn't throw it the entire width of the field, but that might have gone 35 yards, right?
Yeah.
So to be able to throw it that far with defense converging while getting drilled, you have to be not just a former quarterback to do that. You have to be a former good athletic quarterback to do that, which he was. He was one of the best players in Tennessee as a high schooler. He brought his high school team back, Blackman High School in Murfreesboro. I went and checked it out last year. Jauan invited me out to his football camp right before training camp. And he's telling me about his favorite high school memory. They were down I think 32 or 33 points to some team in the second half, and people had already left. And out here, they broadcast a lot of high school games on radio. And one guy, I talked to the guy that was listening to it on the radio, and he was like, he had to wheel around and come back because Jauan Jennings just put his team on his back as the QB and led them all the way back. And then as time expired, they scored what could have been the tying touchdown minus the extra point, and they went for 2. And they just went read option to Jennings, and 5 guys, they knew they were going to run it, and 5 guys had him in the backfield, and he just said, screw this. And he just dragged them all into the end zone. They won 43-42. So that was Jauan Jennings in high school. Yeah,
these guys, man, all these pros, the guys that you've never heard of, right? There are guys that play special teams for 8 years in the league that most people don't know. Their photo is framed in their high school football coaches' offices. All these guys are superstars on some level, right? That's what's so cool to me about
the NFL.
The NFL,
yeah,
and the guys that aren't the big time prospects, the guys that aren't the biggest names, every parent sitting in the stadium wishes their kid was half as good as the guy that plays 7 years on special teams and nobody's ever heard of.
Which is why every single parent that has a son that might be okay at quarterback is going to try to follow the Brock Purdy path.
Yeah, well,
Even though
good
that
luck.
might be the most impossible path ever to take, but
So-
they'll try. They'll try.
So the other thing before we go here, I wanted your take on was just safety. Like, how badly do the Niners need? Everyone wants Justin Simmons. And the question is, like, how comfortable are the 49ers playing Jair Brown and Talanoa Hufanga as their two safeties next year?
Can you toss up the depth chart that I have there?
Oh, yeah.
I think this is, I'll zoom in on it too right here. I think this is the best like visual. It's a simple visual illustration, but it's an effective one. Here's the safety position. You almost always like to have four. They have the right side of the line is the practice squad. I don't think that Taylor Hawkins or Eric Harris is their fourth safety. So they've got Brown and Hufanga, who's obviously coming back from injury. So I've got him in the pink shade. You've got Odom as one of your backups. That's great. This spot needs to be filled. So they need somebody. Based on my understanding, and this is based partly on what John Lynch told us at the owners' meetings, when Julian Blackmon came in for a visit, they didn't guarantee him a starting spot. They said, we need flexibility here. The floor of what we need is depth. Talanoa Hufanga is coming back from an ACL. Jair Brown's a second-year guy. We're going to toss you into the mix with those two, and we'll see who comes out as the top two safeties. Blackmon signed yesterday with the Colts for $7.7 million because I'm fairly certain they guaranteed him the starting spot that he used to have with them. So that's where the 49ers are right now. The safety market isn't great. Justin Simmons is still there. I think you don't tell Justin Simmons that he's going to have to compete. He has the most picks in the league of anybody since 2018. But you also would have to pay Justin Simmons more money. If you can get Justin Simmons at a rate that fits within your budget, which I don't know, is that 10 million? Is it 8 million? Whatever it is, then yes, you bring in Justin Simmons and you let Jair Brown and Talanoa Hufanga battle it out. But if you can't do that, which I still think it's probably less likely than it is likely, even if the market is soft for safeties, then somebody like Deshaun Gibson Sr. might come back. And I think at age 34, he would be, that's a situation where he'd be okay mentoring guys younger than him and maybe starting, maybe not starting, maybe 3 safety sets. That's how Hufanga first broke into the league in 2021. They ran a lot of 3 safety stuff. So we'll see how they do it. All I do know is that Brandon Staley has a track record of really creatively using defensive backs. That goes back to the star position that he had for Jalen Ramsey and for Derwin James with the Rams and the Chargers. So he wouldn't mind having another capable body back there.
It's a lot of colleges run that.
Fred Warner played it. I don't think Warner could do it in the NFL, but Warner was like a DB in college. He's playing the slot, glorified linebacker role,
If Jair Brown is not at least safety 2, if he's not ready for that, last year's draft, I would say, is trending in the wrong direction. Now it's early, but if he's not safety 2 and like the Hufanga replacement, then right now this is trending towards an almost fruitless draft, with the exception of, maybe Jake Moody.
Moody, I think, is trending in the right direction. People they just remember the extra point in the Super Bowl, but he made some long kicks in crunch time last year, including the Super Bowl, 50 plus yards.
Yep.
That I'm not so sure that Robbie Gould would have made, right? At his age, which is really impressive. So I think Moody's definitely arrow up right now. Obviously, Jair Brown, that Latu pick, I don't think the 49ers are too optimistic because their willingness to pay Brock Wright instead of say, okay, well, we got Latu and Willis developing, that it's not really a vote of confidence. Now I see the comment, Darrell Luter's better than you think. Well, we'll see. He made a nice play on special teams last year.
People love Luter.
So we'll see. He's got to prove it, right? And Robert Beal, I think they liked what he did in practice last year. He's going to have a shot. I have my depth chart and I see Beal. I think Beal and Drake Jackson might be competing for the final defensive end spot in the rotation because you've already got Bosa, you got Leonard Floyd, you got Yetur Gross-Matos. So I think it's Beal and Drake Jackson competing for DN number 4. Willis contributed. I mean, Willis did what you would hope that a 7th round tight end would do. He made the team and then he became tight end 2, tight end 3 for the 49ers, kind of a hybrid between those two, depending on if Kittle was missing some time with injury. Ronnie Bell, better earlier in the year. Is he going to be the return specialist? It would concern me if he's the only option. He looked a little rough.
We don't have time for this now, probably, but I'd be fine. I would test out a running back there, by the way.
A return specialist?
Just because from what I've seen.
Right?
Oh, no, I'm talking kick return.
Yeah, well, a kick return, I'd put Debo and Christian McCaffrey back there. It's an offensive.
Okay, you're talking punt return. Got it.
Yeah. I think the new kick return rules mean that it's an offensive play. It's much safer, and you put your playmakers there. Punt return, that's the problem because you still have to dedicate a roster spot to it, unless you put McCaffrey back there, which I don't think you do. McCaffrey was awesome at it at Stanford. You could also just put Juszczyk back there and have him fair catch everything. Yeah. I'm not joking. Like the guy, he's a fair catch machine. I've watched very him. Yeah. You've seen him in practice.
Yeah.
So
the only defense of this draft right now is that 70% of it was day 3. So it's like, okay, fine. Right. You got some snaps out of Willis and Bell. Fine. If you get one more, but it's just these 3 right here, these 2, you just need this guy to be at least a number 2 safety.
Yeah. If Moody's ends up being a good kicker, and I think that the data suggests that it's trending in the right direction, but we'll see. And Jair Brown ends up being a solid starter, you can get away with Latu, a whiff on Latu, assuming that goes there. And so your top 3 are okay in that regard. And then it's a bunch of we'll sees. But I agree, after 1 year, and it's tough, right? Because they had such a good roster that with picks that are not in the first or second round, it was going to be hard to make a real impact right away.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Big year, guy. It's a big year.
Big year, David.
It's a pivotal year, right? This
big weekend too. It's a big weekend.
It is a big weekend. I'm headed up to Healdsburg.
I know you are. Enjoy that. And I'm healing my voice. So big weekend for both of us. Lombardi.
Next time we'll rig the coin flip in your favor. I know I talked a little bit more. I'm trying to preserve your voice here.
You know what's funny about it? It's the worst part of this voice is hearing it. It doesn't hurt. I'm not doing any damage by talking, but I just feel like to yourself, to myself, but damage to everybody else's ears. So anyway.
Well, I tried to spare them as much as I could, but we'll get back together in a week or 2. Maybe I'll even see you in San Francisco this week, and then we'll make this a little bit more regular, and people will hear the progress of your voice each time.
That's right. That's the fun. Everyone gets to heal with me. If I go high, it's very smooth. As long as I talk like this, it's not gravelly. See, so this may be my new voice.
Love it. It's all good. It's all good. We got you covered. Thanks again, man.
Thank you, man. That was fun. Have a great trip, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Bye.
See you guys.